Have you ever pondered what truly lurks in the darkness when you turn off the lights? It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That's because as humans we're naturally inclined to fear the unknown. It's a primal instinct, one that's been ingrained in us since the dawn of time, and what could be more unknown and more fearsome than the eerie stillness of the night, where shadows dance and unseen entities could be watching, waiting. Today, we're going to explore that fear. We're going to submerge ourselves in the murky depths of the night and face what lies within. We'll journey through 3 real-life horror stories, each more unsettling than the last. From the spectral figure lurking in the woods, to the unseen presence living right under our noses, and finally, the ghostly child that haunts the corridors of an old, abandoned house. So brace yourselves, steel your nerves. Let's delve into the shadows, shall we? Our first tale takes us deep into an isolated forest, where the trees whisper secrets of a chilling presence. Imagine, if you will, a group of carefree teenagers embarking on a camping trip, their laughter echoing through the dense foliage. Unbeknownst to them, their joyous echoes awaken something lurking in the depths of the forest, something that does not welcome their intrusion. As dusk settles, the once lively forest transforms into an eerily silent stage, setting the scene for an encounter that would freeze the bravest of hearts. The first sighting of the entity is almost incidental, a fleeting shadow in the corner of an eye, a rustle of leaves that doesn't quite fit the rhythm of the wind. But then, the chilling whisper of an unseen presence makes itself known. A figure, barely discernible against the moonlit trees, stands at the edge of their campsite. Its form, neither human nor animal, sends a shiver down their spines. The entity makes no move, no sound, it simply watches. With every passing second the air grows colder, and the sense of dread deepens. Then in a heartbeat the tranquility shatters. The entity lunges at the terrified teenagers, its eerie silence replaced by a sound that echoes the purest form of fear. The chase is on. The once familiar path back to civilization becomes a treacherous maze, every tree a potential hiding place for the entity. Their hearts hammer in their chests, their breaths ragged as they run for their lives. The forest, once a sanctuary of nature, becomes their prison. The entity, relentless, seems to be everywhere at once. Panic sets in. The once carefree laughter now replaced with desperate cries for help that fall on deaf ears. The forest, it seems, has chosen its side. The night eventually gives way to dawn, and the entity retreats back into the shadows, leaving behind a group of shaken survivors. The forest, once a sanctuary of nature, forever became a haunting memory for these unfortunate souls. Next we journey into the heart of the city, where a seemingly ordinary apartment holds an extraordinary secret. We turn our attention to a man named Tom, a city dweller who thought he'd found his perfect sanctuary, a place to call home. Tom was a simple man, who believed in the mundane, the everyday, the explainable. Little did he know he was about to be confronted with unexplainable events that would shatter his worldview. His apartment, his haven, began to reveal its dark underbelly. It started subtly, things out of place, the feeling of being watched. It was easy to brush off. Perhaps he was just forgetful. Maybe it was just the stress of city life. But then, the occurrences escalated. Tom would find lights on that he'd swear he'd turned off, food consumed that he didn't remember eating, whispers in the dead of night that he couldn't quite make out. Then, the undeniable happened. One night, Tom returned home to find a warm cup of coffee on his table. His heart pounded in his chest. He lived alone. He hadn't been home all day. The reality of it all hit him like a freight train. He wasn't alone in his apartment. There was an unseen tenant sharing his sanctuary. Tom's mundane world was shattered. His apartment, once a haven, now a place of dread, a place of fear. Every creak, every whisper, every shifting shadow was a stark reminder of his unwanted guest. How does one live with the unseen? How does one confront what they cannot see? How does one reclaim their peace when it's been shattered by the unseen? These are the questions that haunted Tom, questions that may still haunt him today. The story of Tom and his unseen tenant is a chilling reminder that sometimes our sanctuaries are not as safe as we believe them to be. That sometimes our homes hold secrets, secrets that lurk in the shadows, unseen, unheard, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. One can only imagine the terror of living with an unseen, unwanted guest. Our final story takes us to a quaint little town, where an old school building hides a frightful secret. In this seemingly peaceful place, there was a schoolteacher named Miss Harper who, despite her youthful enthusiasm, found herself in the midst of an eerie tale. Her story begins with an innocent enough event. She started to notice a small child, always in the corner of her eye. But when she turned to look, the child was gone. At first, she dismissed it as a trick of the light or perhaps fatigue from her long workdays. But as the days turned into weeks, the fleeting glimpses became more frequent. The figure of the child started to take shape in the dim light of the classroom, always out of focus, always just out of reach. A sense of unease began to creep over Miss Harper, a feeling that she was not alone, even in the empty school hallways. One evening, as she stayed late to grade papers, the encounter took a chilling turn. She heard a soft giggle echoing through the room, a sound that was as haunting as it was childlike. It was then that she saw her, a girl, no more than 10, dressed in an old-fashioned school uniform, her face obscured by a shadow. The ghostly child stood there looking at Miss Harper with an intensity that turned the teacher's blood cold. Determined to uncover the truth, Miss Harper delved into the school's archives, where she found a tragic tale of a young girl who had once been a student at the school. She had passed away unexpectedly, decades ago, her life cut short by a cruel twist of fate. The girl's name was Emily, and her story was one of heartbreak and loss. Miss Harper's encounters with Emily's ghost ceased after she discovered the truth. It was as if Emily had just wanted her story to be heard, to be remembered. An enduring reminder that some spirits are forever bound to the places they once called home. As our journey into the darkness comes to a close, let's reflect on the chilling tales we've traversed. We first stood at the edge of a metaphysical abyss, grappling with an unsettling riddle that questioned the very fabric of our reality. A riddle that, despite its simplicity, sent shivers down our spines, made our hairs stand on end, and filled our minds with a sense of dread and uncertainty. We were left to ponder on the terrifying idea that something so seemingly innocent could hold such a sinister secret. From there we ventured into the dense, shadowy woods where we encountered the Watcher, an entity that lurked in the obscurity, its presence felt but never seen. The mere thought of being observed, stalked even, by an unknown being was enough to send icy tendrils of fear coiling around our hearts. The Watcher in the woods served as a stark reminder that we are not always the apex predators we fancy ourselves to be, and that sometimes we are the ones being hunted. Next, we found ourselves within the confines of an ordinary home, made extraordinary by the unseen tenant residing within. The chilling disturbances, the inexplicable occurrences, the sensation of being watched even in the sanctity of our own homes. This tale stripped away the illusion of safety and security we often associate with our personal spaces, leaving us with a lingering sense of unease, a constant over-the-shoulder glance, and finally, we crossed paths with the ghostly child, a spectral figure of innocence corrupted by the dark. The very notion of a child, a symbol of innocence and purity, being entwined with the supernatural was enough to send a chill down the spine. This tale, more than any other, blurred the line between the living and the dead, between the natural and the supernatural. All these stories, despite their distinct narratives, converge on a single terrifying fact. They're all true. Real accounts of real people, a haunting reminder that horror isn't always confined to the realms of fiction. That fear, dread, and terror can seep into our mundane lives, casting long, dark shadows over our perceived reality. These tales of the unexplained, the supernatural, and the downright terrifying serve as a reminder of how thin the veil between our world and the unknown can be. They remind us of the unsettling fact that we share our world with things we don't understand, things that lurk in the shadows, things that go bump in the night. Remember, the next time you find yourself in the dark, you may not be alone. Until next time, sweet dreams.